We'll return to Star Trek following these messages.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
In an actual darkroom scene, painted everything black and white, went in with the airbrush later, solid red over the whole thing. It got the effect I wanted, but now I'm trying it slightly different here, where I'm putting down the red first, then I'll put the darks on top of that. And, you know, this is the way artists would most normally work, and I always work kind of backward from what people otherwise should do.
If you're here at Word Balloon, it's because you like comics, creators, conversation, pop culture subjects. Would you consider joining the League of Word Balloon Listeners? Patreon.com/wordballoon. For just $3 a month or more, you'll get exclusive access to the Word Balloon e-magazine, featuring transcriptions of some of my best conversations. When you subscribe, you'll also be part of the Word Balloon Book Club, where Brian Michael Bendis and I will pick a comic every month to review and discuss live with the League on this show. Join the League today, patreon.com/wordballoon. Thank you always for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners.
Star Trek will not be presented tonight, so that we may bring you the following special program.
Welcome back, everybody. Time again for another Word Balloon. It's a Trek Watch episode, and I got two of my favorite guys that really know how to write Star Trek from IDW. Jackson Lanzing, Colin Kelly, currently killing it on a fantastic miniseries. We are 2 issues in to, here's a variant cover because I really appreciate this one because it really tells you what's going on. The Last Starship, and there's that face, that 23rd century face of James T. Kirk in the future. Boys, good to see you. How are you?
Great to see you.
John, great to see you.
We I was just saying, we just sent issue 4 to print, and we're psyched. I really feel like every issue of this story, we're learning how to turn it up even more. So it's really been a joy.
Guys, honestly, I love, and I've said this before with other things that you did, the Day of Blood event, the Starship book with Cisco, Valiant with, or not Valiant, Defiant. Yep. Sorry, thank you, Colin. With Warship, you guys walk between the raindrops and you find these great ideas for stories. And I will let you describe what's happening in The Last Starship. Out of the events of Discovery, and this is a prequel, but it's a great idea. And you took what I thought was like, all right, what are these guys doing as far as the Discovery people? And you have spun gold, boys. Well done. So please explain what The Last Starship's all about.
We're waiting for the other guy to do it. It's like, who's taking the
it's conversation chicken.
The last Starship is at its core a sort of 2 things. On the one hand, it's as you describe it. It's a Star Trek prequel to Discovery and a sequel to everything that came before it, set about 100 years before the 3rd season of Discovery. So if you're a Star Trek person, you're watching this, you know what's up. Then this is a story about the burn. This is a story about what happens when the entire sort of Starfleet apparatus, every starship, every starbase with a dilithium core, every planet that has an active dilithium like experiment going on it, every colony with a dilithium reactor, all explode. And what happens to the Federation when effectively its civilian and military infrastructure disappears overnight, trillions of people die, and trust is lost almost overnight. And the question of how do you survive? So like the first 3 issues of Last Starship is about surviving that event. It's just surviving the like few months right after that event. Every 3 issues of Last Starship is then going to head further in time down that event. You called it a mini series. We sort of we think of it as like a maxi series that is also simultaneously like we sort of imagine it like an ongoing. We plotted it like an ongoing that we could like schedule out as much as big or small as we want. But we have a 12-issue commitment from IDW, and that's sort of where we, what we were writing for at the start. So the idea is that every 3 issues over the course of these chapters, we're going to be going ahead in time, and you're going to be seeing deeper and deeper and deeper into the burn, into how it has affected the lives of the people on the last Federation starship, the USS Omega, how it affects the civilizations around it, like the Borg, and like the Klingons, like the Romulans, and the Vulcans, but also how it affects the sort of out of time James T. Kirk, who's been brought back for very mysterious reasons as part of a Borg stipulation on their giving the Omega their aid. And so that's really at core what Last Starship is if you're a Star Trek person.
And I
if
think
you're not a Star Trek person.
Yeah. If you're not a Star Trek person, which is really, those are the ones that we're trying to welcome into Star Trek. One of the things that we've been hearing throughout our time on Star Trek is that convention after convention, we meet so many people who are Star Trek people, but they're not comics people, or vice versa. We got sick of that. We wanted to create the Star Trek comic that welcomes you into the house, even if you've never Star Trek'd before. So describing this as a prequel to Discovery hurts my soul. It hurts mechanically correct. But the thing about this is, in order to tell the story of the last starship, you needed to find a story that takes place in the last frontier. And that is really one of the hearts of what Star Trek is taking a family, putting them on a ship to nowhere, right? On a ship, and putting them out in the middle of the unknown. That's the core of Star Trek. And we've seen the far future with Trek. We've been to the past. This is a time during the history that is exactly what we were looking for. It's this moment of chaos, far enough in the future that you do not need to know anything about Trek. We are not relying on anything here that you need to build the story on for you to enjoy it, with the exception of the things that audiences have probably already absorbed pop culturally. You know what a James T. Kirk is, right? You know what a Borg is, even if you don't really know what they are beyond those spooky kind of robo-zombies. By tipping our hat to the things that we know people are already engaged in and not relying on anything that's kind of the meat and potatoes of what Star Trek has been before, we've tried to create something that we're really considering absolute Star Trek or ultimate Star Trek. It's a great time to come in, experience what the buzz is, experience the excitement of Star Trek, even though it is in Star Trek's darkest day.
Way to pump the product, Colin. Well done. Well said. I love it. And truly, you'll forgive me because given that this, as much as I cover Star Trek, and guys, I would be very happy to do a 365 Star Trek podcast every day.
Yeah. You're a Star Trek head just like us.
So and again, people who know Star Trek might be like, well, we know how the dilithium issue is solved because it happens in the 3rd season of Discovery. All right, but as we know, good storytelling is not about the destination; it's the journey.
Exactly.
And you have put this story in this place where, in the future, but 100 years before Discovery jumps to the future, this is a very passive Starfleet and passive Federation, and they've kind of forgotten how to fight.
Yeah,
and so yeah, go ahead, Chance. From that,
that is exactly why we set the story here. We had been struggling for a while to discover a place in the Star Trek timeline that allowed us the operational freedom that we wanted to create brand new characters, to create a brand new context, to create a brand new set of conflicts, to create a brand new ship, to play with new technology. We really wanted to tell a totally new thing and be able to say, but at the core of it, it's Star Trek. And so as we looked at the timeline and played around with that, we have a few different ideas. I don't want to tip. We have one that is our chorus of core ideas. Someday we'll get to do it. It's the one dangling thread on our Star Trek list that's someday we'd love to come back to this. But we thought about, is it that? Is it this? What is the thing we want to do? And the burn, by nature of Discovery solving the problem, right? But the Discovery spends an entire season trying to be what is the burn? What happened? How do we solve it? How do we put it back to rights? How do we do that? And then runs that whole mystery and plays it out. That is a gift to us
Yeah.
Because it means that our book at no time needs to be concerned with what caused the burn. In fact, it's so much better for our story, which is not a story about trying to discover anything in terms of like, oh, what is the thing? Our story is about trying to survive and trying to hold something together, trying to hold a monolith that you thought was incredibly solid together as it crumbles. And so being able to say, in the first issue, we have a line that's like, this place, we've retasked a starbase, we're calling it Deep Space Hope, they're going to figure it out. And Star Trek fans know they're not, right? Non-Star Trek fans might go, oh, okay, great. That lets that be over there. And I'm sure we'll come back to that. And
spoiler alert,
we're coming back to that. But yeah, you'd think we could just ignore it. But ultimately what that does is that puts a great piece of story on our table because you know they're going to fail. So what does it mean for that place to fail? What does that look like? What is that story? Okay, great. Now we've got more narrative, right? The deeper we dug into the burn, the more we realized that by solving the core problem, Discovery had actually left behind an incredible amount of like not just unanswered questions, but just fully unopened story envelopes. Like things that you're just like, oh, they weren't even thinking about this. This gives us a chance to own an entire century of Star Trek history and unpack it the way that we want to unpack it as creators, the way that Heather wants to unpack it as an editor, the way that our artist, Adrian, wants to unpack it. All of a sudden, we don't all have to be like, oh, how do we go between the raindrops? It's like, no, like they
No
didn't.
raindrop.
No,
There's no raindrops here. There's no storm at all. This is dry land. It's like a desert.
We get to bring the storm.
Yeah,
damn straight.
Yeah, we get to be the storm. We get to be the gardeners. Like however you want to make that metaphor, right? We get to grow something new. And Discovery gave us that operational freedom. So I'm very thankful to Discovery Season 3. I've been pretty, I think even on this podcast, I've been pretty overt about like, I'm not a huge fan of the burn as a plot line. I think that it hurts as a Star Trek fan to be like, oh, everything I knew is gone. And that hurt is exactly what we wanted to mine as writers and discover why we felt that way and take characters through that to make something new. And ideally something that then is universal, right? Isn't, as Colin said, it like it's not a Discovery prequel. Like it is if you're talking to somebody and you really need to just break it down to brass tacks as a Star Trek person. Like, what is this? Okay, yeah, technically it's the story of this thing you heard about in Discovery. But for a new reader, it's the story of a civilization falling apart and the one group of people who are trying to hold it together. That's it.
Boom. Absolutely, man. No, I love it. And again, you guys take the familiar and the general aliens of Star Trek and put new spins on them. Colin, start telling me about this crew, starting with Captain Sato.
Captain Delacorte Sato. We fans of our work will realize that this is the second Sato we have created, but the third in the Sato line. Right? We kind of uplifted Hoshi Sato's family from the original Enterprise into a legacy that's lasted for almost 900 years within the Federation. That is one of our questions here was, how do we create a protagonist who is a man of now, being then, right, in the future, but has all the legacy behind him and is truly going to feel this pain from this perspective. And we thought, well, this man has a 900-year legacy of Trek. He is himself an embodiment of the Federation, being Vulcan, human, Trill, Andorian, right? He is the polyglot of the species. He is the dream of the Federation. And we even get to catch up with him as he is bringing the last civilization, the Gorn, into the Federation to bring peace. He is the embodiment of everything the Federation has ever wanted. And, we've written a lot of kind of sexy captains, a lot of, cool captains. We wanted to write, for sake of a better argument, a Picard. Not a lot of, maybe some people might argue with me.
Picard is very sexy. What are you saying? Yeah.
I apologize to the internet. Picard is very sexy. But what he is competent, rational. He is the adult in every room. And that is the kind of character that we really wanted to bring to the table. We love him.
Oh, go ahead. But he recognizes, if I may, the problems with his modern day Starfleet and Federation. They are not used to war. They are not used to conflict, or certainly a calamity on this scale, where it seems a lot of the former allies of that were turned into allies of Starfleet are now enemies again. And there's a Klingon faction that I think we're comfortable to mention because
Oh, yeah.
2 issues
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, issue 2 being out, we can talk a little bit about them. We call them the Black Mind. They're kind of a reframe of a lot of the Red Path stuff that we worked out in our previous Star Trek books. Any fan of our work is kind of aware we're very interested, especially as regards Klingons, at the sort of like cult mentality that seems to stem up very easily for Klingons. Traditionally and historically, it's just a thing we've seen over and over again with the Klingons. Like new leadership suddenly leads to like very like bloody situations very quickly, leads to a lot of like really intense loyalty very hard. Their sort of honor system means that when you are in a violent or dangerous scenario, Klingons get into action very quick and know how to react to that action. But that also means that their leaders can be pretty cavalier. And it means they get stuck with leaders like Gowron a lot more than they get stuck with leaders like Martok. And so we thought, given this, it felt like at the at the outset of the burn, what are the species who are going to react to that like an attack? Who are going to see that as an assault that they need to push back on? And the Klingons are like, it's like in their species DNA,
absolutely,
to experience a tragedy, reframe the tragedy as an attack, and then get that counterattack mobilized as quickly as humanly possible, right? Or Klingonly possible. And so that really felt like a great opportunity to look at that. But the Black Mind is a little deeper than that. And that's something we're going to get into in issue 3, is that the Red Path was all about taking that and making it a sense of purpose. What is it to be a Klingon and be honorable and be loyal and be quick to judge and all these kind of things, but also be like a good person, a person who's interested in self-reflection, in self-analysis, in growing oneself. Like the Red Path goes from being an exercise in Kaleth's ego to being the way Kaleth redeems himself. And by the end of it, he sort of rethought what the Red Path is and begins to teach that to the Klingon Empire. The Black Mind is what happens when that Klingon loyalty and honor and quickness to fight becomes nihilism. What happens when you watch all your friends and family die very suddenly?
And not die in glorious battle, but die in an accident across the galaxy. Not a single one of them will ever see Stovacor.
Right. What does that mean for you? How does that mobilize you? And what do you do with the time you have left? That's what the Black Mind becomes. And I think it's a really sympathetic, for villains, they're a very sympathetic, I think, rationale. And that's, again, what we're always looking for in The Last Starship. No one's a bad guy. Everyone's just reacting to tragedy differently. And that reaction to tragedy creates some really unfortunate events that we know are going to dissolve most of the Federation by the end of the century. So getting to sort of step those things out is very fun.
And that entire relation, or that entire Klingon kind of perspective, comes to a head through our character Valkis, who is our in issue 2. Let's keep calling her our comms officer.
She's our comms officer. Yeah.
Comms officer. There she is on the cover. She is a fervent, passionate follower of the Red Path of 700 years from now, where it has become a path of peace, a path of calm rationality, right? Almost more Vulcan than Klingon, you would expect. But these perspectives of the Black Mind really will shake her to her core, and we're going to see a very real kind of Red Path to Black Mind pipeline, right? She's going to get radicalized in an interesting way that we're very excited to explore as the story continues.
Well, and again, these people who are facing this modern problem, Sato's solution is to go back to that space station that we saw in Picard season 3 and that wonderful Easter egg of, hey, look, they have Kirk's DNA. They grabbed it from Viridian 3, and there is DNA there of Kirk. Let's clone Kirk. And I love that now. And forgive me, guys, I'm going to show a variant cover for issue 3 because it's already out there. But it's not Star Trek 6 Undiscovered Country Kirk. Or Generations Kirk. It's TOS Kirk that they have resurrected with the memories. That happened of his life.
Of Undiscovered Country Kirk. And I think that's the thing that we're really excited about with Kirk, is that this is a new version of him. This is not the guy you knew. It's not the guy you grew to know. This is a new being with his memories and an understanding of his legacy and a very fraught emotional framework and none of his support system. His best friend, not
They're all
there.
gone.
His crew, not there. His ship, not there. Like all of the things that made, like, if we know anything about James Kirk, it's that the one place he never wants to be is all alone with his thoughts and feelings. He's really bad at that. Historically, he's very bad at that.
Hey, right?
Like, unless he's climbing a mountain, right? Like, that's like the only place he wants to be, like, alone. So our whole framework with him is like, now this guy's fully isolated and is having to reckon with, like, what does he have to bring to bear in this world? And I think that's maybe the hardest part of issue 2, and the part that I'm curious about how Star Trek fans follow us there, is that the Kirk of Undiscovered Country, which, you know, I sort of think of as like the landing point of that character, which is I face my bigotry against the Klingons. I recognize that it is bigotry, and I understand that things are not as black and white as I thought. And then here he is, 700 years in the future, and the Klingons are about to kill everything that's left. Is his power then his bigotry? That's a really terrible thought. That's a hard place to live. That's certainly not a very Star Trek idea. And it's not a very Kirk idea. But in this moment of intense crisis where there are no good answers and there are only bad ones, is the thing that makes Kirk special that as we say in issue 2, that the Klingons killed his son and that hatred is still inside of him somewhere, and that can allow him to fight in ways that other people can't. That's a really interesting conversation. That's a question mark for us. And when we started to dig onto that started to unveil what issue 3 could look like. And I think when people see how that lands in issue 3, they'll get a better sense of what we're doing with that character. Because that sense of confusion about self and identity and righteousness, this is a Kirk who's having to relearn what he believes about all those things.
Well, and further, and guys, minuscule, because I believe it's addressed in 3. Kirk goes to Sato and goes, "What kind of hell did you put me in? Why did you bring me back to this?" And that is essentially your master thesis in terms of what this James Kirk is dealing with. I want to put up a comment because I'm so glad that already people are on board like I am. And Joshua says, "I just want to say I love the book. I work in a comic shop and I've been relentlessly singing the book's praises." Amen, Joshua. Way to go. Because
thank you, Joshua. I hope the book is moving at your stores. We hear good things about the retail on this book. We are doing everything we can to get boots into your stores. So thank you for doing the other half of that work. We are partners in this. So seriously, thank you.
And I mean, you know, the retailer support has been incredible. News is kind of coming out already that our orders on issue 3 are larger than our orders on issue 2. Which any comics person out there is like, what?
That doesn't happen. Exactly.
Yeah, the order uptick was a big surprise to all.
It's the unicorn of comics retailing. And then our first issue is going back with second printing. So, you know, the fact that it is hitting with audiences as hard as it is just absolutely incredible. We know that we've been living in this, we've been loving it, and you definitely can sense our excitement just in our conversation here, but we're putting it on the page. Like this story, we're doing every step of the story because it gets us so excited. We have to write this. And I'm really glad that it's kind of showing up and that people are feeling that.
And the scale of the story, because it's a comic book, you guys and Adrian can go to these crazy places and give us incredibly intense ship battles, incredibly intense personal battles. But I want to continue with the crew because this is a great, interesting group of new people. Yeah. And you guys said it, Kirk is alone, but thankfully the Star Trek reader and fan will see familiar aliens. And in a way that I really felt Discovery blew it. And I'm underlining my negativity by saying blew it, because we got a Ferengi, and this was the Ferengi depiction. Here's an imitation. It's silent, so you got to watch the video. But here's the Ferengi. He just stood there in the background. He was a background actor. Thank God we got a little bit of Ferengi in Picard. But again, that was more contemporary to familiar territory of Next Gen and the other shows. Right. And let's start with your chief medical officer, who's a Ferengi.
John, do you like Dr. Zed? Are you a Dr.
Zed fan? I'm intrigued.
Good.
because we're finally seeing, just like Kalar being this Klingon meditator or mediator, rather, not a meditator, but this like, oh, now of course they have doctors on Ferengi and everything. What's that like? What is he like?
I think one of the things that I'm really intrigued about with Zed is that so Zed is the shorthand for Dr. Zed is he's the last doctor left. That like the Omega is the last starship. Zed is like the last doctor you want on your ship, but unfortunately, all the other doctors are dead. And we're going to sort of get into that as we go on. There's actually a great scene in issue 5 that's all really about this. Zed is was really an opportunity for us to say, look, we love Ferengi. We think that Ferenginar is a really interesting idea, and the Ferengi as a general concept are really interesting. But if we know that they've joined the Federation by this stage, then we know that like some of the things that we think about when we think about the Ferengi, capitalism, the Nagus, the rules of acquisition, that's all gone. They got away from that hundreds of years ago. They are now a Federation planet. So what are the Ferengi in this world? Well, then they're the ones who still think like that sometimes, who break the rules, who have old, like who sort of hold on to little aspects of their culture that their Federation's never going to make them get rid of, and who have that sort of like roguish sense about them. Zed gets to be a great, I think, representation of that, because he is. We're not constantly throwing around money jokes with him, right? That's not what he's about. His thing is that he is a doctor who self-medicates constantly. He is a doctor who has just lost all of his friends and family, who doesn't really know his place in the world anymore, who has a huge chip on his shoulder for things that we will learn later on in the book. And so as a result, the first thing he does when he beams up to the Omega is get high. And then walk out of the fucking room to go take his hyper nap. Like, that's who he is. He's a
nuts.
He is a roguish, weird, kind of outside the box guy, and he's allowed to be in Federation circles because he's a Ferengi. But what that means generally is he's really able to mask his grief. And so what we're encountering from him as we go is more and more of an understanding of that. As for the wider Ferengi political context, that's going to be coming in a little bit later in the book. The second chapter of our book is very much about how the various worlds of the Federation hold or don't hold together. And so we're going to get a better idea of what's going on with a lot of those planets, but for Ferenginar in specific.
Way to go. That's fantastic, man. All right, let's move on to other. Oh, I'm sorry, Jocks. Colin, please. No,
no. I just we always use a kind of a shorthand of like he's Anthony Bourdain. If Anthony Bourdain was a Ferengi doctor. Like, I also just love. He also just kind of comes from that idea of like, well, infinite diversity. In a culture where every drug is replicatable, every experience is replicatable, and every one of them can be negated instantly, right? How many times have we seen them at 10 forward and they're like, oh shit, emergency.
Synthahol.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Like, it is in the future, there's this concept of what utopia can mean, and the Federation needs to embrace all aspects of that. So one of the things that I think we really like is the idea that he can be a high-functioning drug addict. And the Federation would be like, are you still great doctor? Like, yes. Okay, we accept you for who you are. Which is that kind of like radical acceptance that can actually turn on you if you're not being authentic with yourself. The Federation trusts you, but you do need to be responsible for that trust.
Yeah.
And that is something, there's no one sadder in the room than the clown. So like Zed, very funny, isn't he?
Dude, I'm telling you, honestly, both of you dudes, way to go. Because seriously, all these characters are really, really interesting. And folks, they were IDW, Greg at IDW, and the guys have been kind enough to even give me an advanced look at 3. And it only gets better. And this crew only gets more interesting. So, again, without spoiling, because it happens in issue 2, Chief Engineer, very interesting choice. And again, taking this weird kernel of Picard season 2, and it's like, what? And you guys are like, all right, fine. If that's who this person is now, guess what? We're going to play with her. Talk about Agnes.
Yeah, I mean, all right. So, right, we're doing deep cuts. I actually had,
Eric's joining us. Good to see Eric. Boy, he knows about this because his sister, of course, first officer of the Orville. Thank you very much.
One of
Yes,
the best.
indeed. One of the best Star Trek shows.
Yep. Yes, Agnes Girardi. So we knew that one of the, well, first and foremost, one of the things that we hadn't touched, hadn't played with had been the Borg. And the Borg, I think everyone who grew up at a certain age, that was your nightmare fuel, right? Like that was one of the things that absolutely stuck with you. And the fact that we hadn't touched them yet, we did primarily because we wanted to, the hits have been played so well with the Borg. Doing something new was the only way to approach it. And then in this time space, we really got to thinking about how it would have played out, because from Picard, we do know they got accepted into the Federation. There was this, they vanished, they wandered off to go maintain a wormhole, a cosmic anomaly.
Whatever it was.
Out there.
Yep.
And that's what was really intriguing, because it was able, then if we were able to return to that concept, we wouldn't be telling a classic Borg collective story, but rather the Borg cooperative. And now we get to build something new and exciting. And then we get to build it around Alison Pill, who is great, right? You have that image in your head of who this character is, and we get to kind of bring her to the page while also being like, yes, but this is her after 700 years of stewing in a Borg collective and in a Borg gestalt consciousness. So what can that mean?
I think it was also a great opportunity for us to just put a real lantern on that, to use Alison Pill. This is an actor who we really like. She's been in a million things I love. And when she was included in the Picard cast at first, that was the big exciting casting news for me. Like I was like, oh shit, Alison Pill in Star Trek, I'm here for sure. And then they left her on such a bizarre note that it felt like, if you didn't follow that up, if you didn't go back to that character and really reckon with what that had meant, then I would always be dissatisfied with that plot line. And instead, this gives us a chance to come in and be very satisfied with that plot line, because we get to take her to a place that we think she deserves to go. So I'm just really thankful that we were able to use the likeness, and I hope someday Alison Pill learns about the book. I was going to ask. I can't imagine she knows it exists.
Yeah, I understand. They're busy.
But I hope she sees herself on the cover of a Joelle Jones comic looking totally dope someday and goes, oh, what's that? Because, yeah, big fan.
Well, that's great that you got Joelle to...
I'd love to see what she thinks of the book.
And that's great that you got Joelle to do a variant and everything. That's fantastic. And by the way, again, I had the image earlier, one of Michael Cho's covers. And, of course, Francesco Francavilla, one of my favorite people in comics. And he's just killing it on the covers as well.
Yeah, but, every cover. It's crazy.
But again, what's great is, and I don't think, again, issue 2's out. So dilithium is out. How are these guys going to warp around where they need to go? Girardi is there with transwarp Borg technology, and that's what's powering the Omega. Now, I wanted to ask, and here's a very deep cut nerd question, because something. God bless you guys. So this is what would drive me nuts about New Trek. They would ignore things, and it felt like that dilithium was used by everybody. As we Uber Trek nerds know, that the Romulans used a different kind of energy, and I don't know if the Colin's killing me. I'm saying that for the audio.
You talking about contained singularity drives, John? We're talking about.
I know what I'm talking to. These guys know.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's like, and that's what drove me nuts about some of the things like Agnes's fate that New Trek, Kurtzman Trek, sorry kids, I will call it Kurtzman Trek, have left unresolved. Those tentacles at the end of season 1 of Picard. What does that mean? Oh, we don't care. Next story. Well, Girardi with the Borg. What does that mean? We don't care. Next story. And it's like, and the great thing is comics and novels and tie-ins.
It's what we're here for. It's what we're here for. It's a big part of our purview and like part of our mandate as a medium. When you're dealing with licensed stuff, is to follow that stuff up, and that can be kind of minimizing, right? Like that can mean that our job, as you say, is to walk between those raindrops. I think what's been really exciting for us is in finding this area where there was no rain, is then deciding what raindrops we want to bring in to walk around. And Girardi's a big one. We have a lot of plot to go with that character. The last page of issue 3, you've seen, no one else has seen, is a big, wide open. turn up on that character. You're going to see much more of a turn up on that character in 5. You're going to see a much bigger turn up on that character in 7 and 8. Like she's a slow boil.
Yeah.
And we're really slowly building up here for you. But I think one of the things that I'm really excited about with taking a plot line like that and being able to drive it forward is also finding the places to subvert. Find those places to be like, you didn't think that this is where this plot line was going, because I don't need to worry about what Picard was doing. Picard finished its version of this plot. What we are doing now is picking this up and saying, okay, given where that ended, what's a great place to take this as an ending? And we knew the ending for every character of Last Starship before we started. We know everything about how this book works. That's why I call it a maxi series that's still kind of an ongoing, because it's probably 12, but who knows? But we know the ending. You know, like we know what it is. So however long it takes us to get there, we know how we land. And Girardi is one of those landings where we've known it from the start. We've been able to wrap the book around it. And I think by the time that we get there, you'll be able to look back and go like, oh, wow, this even connects to her enjoyment, or to her plot lines in Picard, that it builds that out. But it also just something very, specific about this book. And I think like we're doing that across the board. Not to spoil anything, but you brought up Romulan singularity drives. We are aware. We are doing something with that. Like you don't leave that on the table. That's a great bit of work. Like, why not use it? It's not going to be the center of our story. It's not like we were like, how do we do Romulan singularity drives? That wasn't what we did. What we did was we built a plot. And then as we were building the plot, we went, what about Romulan singularity drive? And because we know that that's there and we want to play with that, we get to like fold it into the recipe rather than starting the recipe like, wow, I got so many Romulan singularity drives in the fridge. I really got to make something out of these. What am I going to do? It's sort of like, yeah.
I was actually at a pool party once a little bit ago, and I was telling one of the people there about the book, and it was still nascent and kind of describing things. And he pulls me aside and he's like, what about the Romulan singularity drives? Why did Discovery forget about that? And I was like, I don't know, man.
Yeah,
like,
you don't have the answer.
And I was like, I literally can't talk to you about this stuff. Like, I don't want to. He's like, let me tell you what the singularity drives should have been. And I was like, I certainly can't hear what you think about that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, God forbid. Yeah, I don't want to be influenced with your story. Absolutely.
So aggressive about telling me how he thinks the Romulan singularity drives. I was like, thank you, sir. I'm so glad you're excited. I have to leave this party. Because just would not stop.
Oh, boys. I'm so sorry.
I hear you, though. The passion for the singularity drives, man. Everybody who's like, oh, prequel to, what about the singularity drives? Like, my guys, we know about the singularity drives.
But guys,
we're gonna get there.
And again, this is why you guys. I just had David Mack on a couple of weeks ago talking about the Khan podcast drama, and I certainly later will ask you guys before we wrap up your thoughts on that. But this is my frustration as my teeth clench about Kurtzman Trek. They don't know and they don't care. And that's okay. That's a choice. And that's fine. They're the guys with the control and the power. But it does frustrate the chess master Uber Trek nerds like myself, like your guy at your pool party, and like yourselves in terms of and that's the great thing. You guys can come in with the tie-in stuff and go, we got it. Don't worry. And that's what I mean. David Mack was the same way when I was talking to him about his novels and the podcast drama and stuff. And that's great. And I am really excited for the new regime as far as the potential, because we've had 8 years of Kurtzman. Goodbye. Time to go. I'm sorry. You've made your imprint. You've got your impact on Trek. No one will take that away. Whatever they decide to do in the future, just like Berman Trek, this is an era of Star Trek, for better or for worse. I stress the latter, but that's okay, because thankfully you guys are keeping me sane with a story like The Last Starship.
Here to help. I think we talk about this every time we've come to talk about Star Trek. So I'm a bit of a broken record on this, but like, I really am a big fan of using the whole entity, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I look at current Star Trek, are there plots I don't like? Absolutely. Are there plots I do like? Absolutely. Are there characters who I think are as good as anything that's been on Star Trek? 100%. Do I think there's characters I would throw out an airlock? Of course. And I think that's true.
I'm sorry, Raffi.
but I think it's true. Truthfully, I think it is true that every Star Trek fan feels that way about every Star Trek series at some point or another. Sure. I could say as many mean things about Voyager or Enterprise as I could say about Discovery or
first season TNG, dude. It was a struggle. It was a struggle.
Yeah.
So I get it.
I think like my feeling about Kurtzman Trek is that he has kept it alive in a period where it did not need to have wide reach, where it did not need to have its own brand, where it didn't need to do an animated series or a kids series. I love that we got Lower Decks out of this. I love that we got Prodigy out of this. I love that we got Strange New Worlds out of this. I think and certainly I'm very thankful we got Discovery out of this because it gave us the opportunity to do something like this, right? Like I think Picard season 3 is a wild experience. I'm very, very glad I got to watch it as an old Next Generation fan, right? Like there's a million things along this way that I'm very happy for. I'm really excited to see what they do next. We will be at the door asking to be let in, right? Like that's my big thing now is I'm really glad that Jonathan Daly and I can't remember his name. I shouldn't do this.
I forget his name too.
Yeah,
I never remember their names. But the new guys that are directing the new movie, everybody that also directed Dungeons and Dragons and Game Night.
Two guys who love Star Trek and Dungeons and Dragons, who are very experienced in the comic book.
I'm a huge fan of them. I think we might be duplicative of them, unfortunately, but I would really love to we've sort of said like Last Starship's our last Star Trek book for a minute. We're really gonna focus on some other things. Once Last Starship is done, whenever that is, we're going to be paying our attention to some other things. You're going to hear we just signed on to our first non-Star Trek thing in like a year because this is the only comic we're doing. Everything else
you were telling
Hollywood or games or a secret or whatever. We have one new book we like just signed up to do that's a big IP, and we're really excited to it's something we've never touched. So I think that'll be really fun. We'll dive in. We'll have a good time.
Yeah,
but I know that when we stop, like as soon as we write at the end of whatever the last issue of Last Starship is, we're gonna want to get right back in the captain's room. Like I know us. We're immediately gonna turn around and be like, where do we write a warp drive next? Right. So my hope is that when we do that, we'll be able to turn around and go, we have an office on the Paramount lot. Like I want to be able to just walk down the way to the Star Trek offices and be like, hey guys, what's up? Right. And like hopefully that's where
I hope so.
We are. That's hopefully where we are going in time. Let them build, let them cook. I'm excited to see what they are. And when they need the support of like long-standing Star Trek heads who love this stuff and want to do it, we will be, we'll be the first people there.
I'm with you guys. Absolutely. And, Judith and Gar Reeves Stevens got their opportunity, I think, on Voyager or Enterprise or both. Yeah. And, David Mack, who I just talked to, had his 2 Deep Space Nine ID stories that happened. Yeah. And no, that's great. And again, it's time for new blood. Hey, these guys are going to need a writer's room. Well, I should say Paramount is going to need a writer's room eventually. It can't just be done by 2 people. Yeah. But again, the opportunities seem to be there in a great way. And I'm with you on the animated stuff that has happened during Kurtzman Trek.
Yeah.
It took me a while to warm up to Lower Decks, but I did. And Prodigy is excellent. And really, much like the original animated series, is a feast for adults as much as trying to get kids in. It's a shame it got cut short on only 2 seasons, but we got literally 40 episodes.
Yeah, I mean,
so in today's streaming environment, that's a lot. Yeah. So that's 4 seasons of streaming when you think about it.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's a different world that way. No, I love it. All right, First Officer. Tell me about the First Officer.
Wowie Carter.
Wowie Carter. Great name.
They are the core.
Are they trans? Pardon me. When you say they are, they are.
Yeah, they're non-binary. Yeah, they're non-binary. They've lived basically their whole life non-binary. We're going to kind of get into that a little bit in issue 4. Issue 4, you're going to learn a lot about Wowie. Wowie is our deep dive character in issue 4, and you're really going to get for the first time over the course of Last Starship, I think, our first real single character deep dive right on that one. Ultimately, what we wanted to do with WowWee was twofold. The first was, it's really important to continue the premise of Gene Roddenberry's evolved humanity. And something that we see in Discovery 3, again, this is like one of those, the only raindrops we really have are the places we can backfill there, right? So we know that Earth is not just going to leave the Federation, but it's going to become something of a military dictatorship. And we know that it's eventually going to result in a presidency and whatever, but like probably takes some time to get there, and it's probably kind of a rough ride as like a separatist Earth first kind of military.
And we also know that they step out of the Federation. They were actually one of the first.
Yeah. So we know
to step out. Yeah.
So we know that the burn. Yeah, exactly. So we know it's early, and we know that it's intense. And we know that their civilization goes in a really different direction than what Roddenberry would have sort of premised as like where humans would go.
Yeah.
We also, however, love the premise of Roddenberry's sort of like, I don't know if it's a misunderstanding of evolution, but it's a very like esoteric understanding of evolution, which is, we can evolve past individualized emotions. We can evolve past grief. We can evolve past,
envy. All the seven deadly sins, greed, essentially,
right? Yeah. Or self-interest. We can evolve past that stuff. What we wanted to do with WowWee was say, okay, after we've done all of that, what is left to evolve past? And we looked at a character and said, what does it mean if a character at least believes that they cannot feel fear, that they've evolved past fear, that the idea of second guessing oneself, of not throwing oneself 100% into something because they know what they're doing, like how perfect can a human get? And that was where we wanted to go with WowWee, because that makes for such a great conversation if you know that Earth is going to leave quickly, because that means they have to be afraid. You don't do that if you're not afraid. So if we have a character who is human, who is saying, no, we're evolving past this, and you have the rest of the human race saying, no, we believe in this, that conversation makes such a good arc. And that's really where that's what WowWee is premised on. It also just means that we get to have a kick-ass, like young kind of Wesley Crusher style character, except he's the first officer of the ship. He does some action stuff in issues 2 and 3, especially in issue 3, that I just am like, is just some of my favorite stuff. Adrian's really every time you put WowWee into action. So yeah, that's what's up with WowWee, Carter. I love them, man.
Yeah, WowWee is eminently physically capable, and perhaps has not done as much emotional analysis as they need to, because after all, unfortunately, Gene, you can't evolve past emotion.
Yeah.
Right? There's no such thing as evolving past greed. It'd be nice. We can socially acclimatize ourselves to no longer engage with it, but it's in the DNA, my friends. And turning back on that is a surefire way to discover disaster.
Well, as we've discussed before, it's Kirk's comment in A Taste of Armageddon. We're killers, but we're not going to kill it today. Right. And it's that. And I love, again, having Kirk observe this future is fascinating, to use a Spock phrase. And it's right. I mean, it's and WowWee's a great example of that, where there's this level of admiration for this kid. And at first he's like, I don't know, kid, I'm going to throw you into something really tough. Yeah, no problem, sir. And it's like, that is great.
Yeah,
that is great.
Their relationship in issue 3 is pretty dynamite. I'm a big fan of it, but it leaves WowWee in a very complicated place in issue 4 moving forward. And so I think that again is stuff that I'm really excited to see play out as we continue to explore that character.
All right, I'm going to ask questions a little bit post, because I know I'm watching the clock too. Don't worry, guys, and I know you guys.
No problem. I'm trying to think. I think that's the whole. Yeah, that is the whole cast. We talked about everybody except for V, and it's great because V is a secret. Nobody gets to know about V. Everything about V is redacted. You can just read the book.
Is this okay? And also, by the way, and you've done this throughout your Star Trek stuff. Yeah. I love your text pieces because it gives you an opportunity to go a little bit further than 22 pages will allow. And it only enriches the story. I was having the same conversation with Philip Kennedy Johnson with his text pieces that he's doing in Superman and Batman and Robin and the like, and the Hulk for that matter. So yeah, it's great. And yes, this is a very mysterious kind of Section 31 or Starfleet intelligence character. We don't know much about her. Her. Now, Romulan, Vulcan, we don't know yet.
Navarin.
Navarin.
Because at this point the Romulans and the Vulcans have created, but what that means is going to be a longer term conversation.
Fantastic. Again,
where she falls on that Vulcan to Romulan binary.
Yeah.
And we're definitely looking at, and I think as you get into issue 7, you're going to see a lot more of that.
Much like
also, yeah.
Go
Well,
ahead,
but also obviously there's right. You can reduce. You can combine. How to put it? You can combine chocolate and vanilla, but if you're lactose intolerant, it'll still be a bad. Yeah. Basically, you can take the Vulcan Science Academy and you can take the Romulan Tal Shiar and you can put them in the same place, but that doesn't mean that either of them go anywhere, right? Just because you change the label doesn't mean that the soda different.
Yeah.
So what she is sitting on, what secrets she is sitting on, and what that is going to how that's going to unpack, is going to be a big mystery and part of how the story progresses.
Navarre, another great example of why. I don't mind unification, but again, it's like, okay, and you guys have taken it to an interesting direction. So,
what I like about Navarre is as a premise within the premise of Discovery, is that when we go to the future, things should be different.
Of
so
course.
I like the idea that if we're going to go to the future, one of the main conflicts that we understand as like a core conflict in the Star Trek universe with the Romulans and the Vulcans has been resolved.
Agreed.
Or quote unquote resolved. And that by doing that, it creates a very different place for everyone to encounter the next time they go to Vulcan or Romulus or Navarre or whatever you want to call it. I think to me, I think there's a very nice initial thread of that. What I'm really curious about is what happens when you really do a story about it, which by and large, Discovery didn't. They had like that one episode, the Absolute Candor episode, where they did that. But I think beyond that, it was always kind of like, oh well, they're Vulcan Romulans.
They're fine.
Yeah. And I think we really wanted to look at that. And again, Discovery left us a great breadcrumb,
right?
Which is that Navarre not only left the Federation much later, but did so while hiding all of its self-analysis about whether or not it had caused the burn. Like there's this great bit in Discovery where they learn like, oh yeah, the Romulans and Vulcans, like as soon as the burn happened, we're like, oh, that was probably us. We probably did a weird science and that was probably us. And then spent a long time trying to figure out whether or not it was them. That part of that story is something we want to unpack in an interesting way inside of Last Starship.
There you go, man. Absolutely. No, and this is why I'm enjoying this story as much as I am. And I've had faith in you boys since Star Trek Year 5, and you continue to impress and astound me, and that really everybody. And I look forward to when we talk about other projects with Jackson and Colin. I've loved their Marvel stuff. Kang is amazing. And of course, DC, the Outsiders thing. I was thinking about that, preparing for this conversation and things. But I do want to, and again, we'll keep it Star Trek centric. Hey, I hope you guys, and forgive me for asking you on the air, but I hope you'll indulge me enough that after every issue comes out, we can continue the Last Starship conversation, because really, all right, because I'm obviously like in withdrawal, not having new on camera Star Trek to talk about, and also I'm gonna need something to keep me sane, because I'll admit Starfleet Academy, I'm like, well, at least Picardo maybe.
My fingers are so crossed. You have no idea how crossed my fingers are. I know as much as you do. My fingers are so crossed.
But regardless, I need the novels. I need the comics to keep me sane, as Don Lenza pointed out earlier in the chat.
We're here for you. We're here for you.
And I know you are. And that's
again, happy to come back anytime to talk Star Trek.
That means a lot,
especially as we get into the cadence of Last Starship. That idea of being able to come in, like whether it's every issue, every chapter, however you want to do it. I think
I would love it every
really
issue.
Great for us to have a place to like unpack this, on a regular basis. So happy to.
Well, and I hope it's cathartic for you guys to, be able to share your excitement with me, and you see the smile that has not left my face.
John, we always love talking about that, of course.
And you have a great sense of not only what the you're a real head. You understand the importance of Star Trek while also getting really excited about the little nitty gritty stuff that most people don't care about, but we this triangle, it's like our whole personalities. So yes, we are happy to have a place to go just to kind of go ham on this stuff.
My good friend Mitch Halleck of Terrificon fame, I was talking to him about it, and he's like, I didn't know there were that many Star Trek YouTube shows and podcasts out there. I'm like, yeah, there are, because there are literally thousands of us that are chapter and verse and think about Romulan ships and what powers them versus dilithium and things. Let me ask you about Star Trek Con. Would you guys listen to it, or were you afraid of potential future influence by the story?
I haven't listened to it yet.
Okay.
It's 100% something I want to listen to.
God, it seems so cool.
It is absolutely in my vibe. I'm really excited about this idea. But I will admit right now, I'm actually really enjoying being in a bit of a Star Trek void and only focusing on our thing. I actually didn't watch any of Strange New Worlds 4 while we were, is it 3 that they just did?
Three just happened.
I didn't watch any of Strange New Worlds 3, which I love, and I have friends who were on and like all this stuff. Didn't watch that show until we were already well underway here.
Okay.
So that I didn't have any of it bouncing around in my head. I think so much of what the distinction between all the Star Trek work we've done before and Last Starship is that all the other Star Trek work was enhanced by sitting there and watching Deep Space Nine over and over again, and watching Next Gen over and over again, and watching TNG over and over again, and like just putting on random episodes and reminding myself of the voice and getting into like, that's a great frame, because it means that every once in a while you'll find a great line that you're like, oh, right, great, I can echo that here and I can do a thing here. With Last Starship, there's no template. It doesn't help to go back to the pool. In fact, going back to TOS Kirk is probably the only place that's useful. And even there, not so much, because we're building our own version of him that is going to have his own voice and his own ideas. So the more that we got into it, the more it became clear to me that the better stuff for me to be watching during this was stuff that echoed with the same story that we did. Like I feel like probably there is more influence on this book out of something like The Brutalist or like I don't know, watching Pluribus, the new show from
I haven't watched it yet. The new show on Apple. Yeah.
From Vince Gilligan. Our buddy Gordon Smith is one of the head guys on that show. He wrote and directed the third episode. One of the producers, Jen Carroll, introduced me to my wife. Like I love the Pluribus people. They're great people. But that show is about living through trauma, living through grief, dealing with your anger, dealing with feeling isolated inside of like worlds that move on without you. There's probably more influence from something like that than there is from watching another Star Trek show.
Sure.
Inside Last Starship, I think that's what makes it special. I think that's what makes it a good book. So I'm hopeful that sort of continues. And then, when it's done, then I can watch the next season of Strange New Worlds.
There you go. Well, again, we're excited for the new movie and the potential new direction, and we can get more into it the next time we talk as well. But in the meantime, the great thing is Last Starship is absolutely, if you're a Trek fan, it is absolutely worth your attention. And it hits all the right notes in the best way that the great comics and the great novels that tie in to the big mythos, it delivers. And again, you guys you're proven commodities to me, boys, and I'm really glad that Heather keeps finding and asking you guys, all right, what else you got? And I'm thrilled that this is an open-ended maxi series.
Doesn't she ask us what else we got?
Lucky us to be dialed in with Heather Antos. I'm telling you, just a one of those, like, I don't know what our life would be if we had not found that editorial partner. Like, she is in so many ways the thing we were hunting for in comics, where you're like, oh, here's like a place to live and feel safe and be able to create, and not like we've worked with a lot of other great editors. I'm not trying to, this is not a diss on any other editor. But I think the thing about Heather is she's the only one who, like, we just like text. We just like hang out. We are friends. We have a really core understanding. And she's really the only editor I think we've ever had who will readily call us on our bullshit if it's apparent. And it's very hard for us to go like, no, we're just going to do this. Like
we work with Tom.
She will ask the question and be unafraid of our ability to handle it, which I really love. I love not being kid gloved like that.
Yeah, we work with Tom Brevoort, and Heather is the one who has given us the harshest criticisms. That's
Great.
exactly correct, because then she's also going to turn around and look at Star Trek and look at Paramount in the eyes and be like, the boys got it right? Like, she throws elbows on our behalf, and thus we will let her punch us in the elbows. I don't know. But yeah, you get me. You get me. It's been a long day.
I do get it. It's yeah, exactly, Colin. And plus, you got the baby to deal with, so I totally respect that.
He's on the other side of my office, banging on the window like a
like a convict.
He's Spock at the end of.
Yes, he's literally got his little hand pressed up, and I'm.
Oh, like, nice. I was gonna say like Riker in the episode where he's in the insane asylum. No.
Oh, also good. Also good. These are all great comps for a baby.
Yeah.
Sad but true. Last Starship, everybody, from IDW. We are 2 issues in. Issue 2 just came out. Catch up. And good news, the boys are going to come back and they're going to talk issue 3 with me hopefully next month, if not early January. Who's saying hello? Heather's saying hello. Hey, Heather.
Thanks, Heather. She shall appear.
Thanks for greenlighting these guys, Heather, honestly. And truly, I know Greg is probably passing along my well wishes to Heather. And not only them, but also Chris Cantwell and the Bridges and everybody that's working in IDW for the Star Trek stuff that they're doing. It's great stories. And believe me, Greg and I have been talking and saying, hey, you want to get Cantwell back? Yes. You want to get the Bridges back about the Voyager Homecoming story? Yes. So, yeah, don't worry. I mean, again, if there's one comic book podcast out there that is absolutely behind what IDW is doing with Star Trek, right here, everybody. Right
here. I can't wait to see this like what if series they're doing. I'm so in the tank for what if Star Trek. It's crazy. Stephanie Williams doing a Uhura version of City on the Edge of Forever. Count me in. Have you heard about this? Are you unaware of it?
I haven't, and I appreciate the tease. Heather, I hope they're okay talking about this. But yeah, that's cool.
They just announced it. They're doing great. They're doing like a what if based sort of series that's going to be, as I understand it, one shots from various creators that take Star Trek and do like a what if. And,
like they did with Star Wars a few years ago when it was still at Dark Horse and they gave us alternate histories and everything.
So Steph Williams is, I guess, doing Steph Williams, who's just one of my favorite writers and is a wonderful person to boot, just like a really great friend. She is apparently doing a Uhura, like what if Uhura went back rather than Kirk? For
the City on the Edge of Forever, the 30 story,
which I just think is such a great premise. Like it opens up all kinds of interesting avenues.
Sure,
I cannot wait to see what she does.
Wow. All right, well, Heather, you heard. I'm going to have to get them on.
I'm in the tank.
Yep,
that's awesome. And Heather promises a lot more coming. Let me get that comment up here. There we go.
Hates sleep. Heather hates sleep. She hates resting. She only lives for comics, and God bless her for it.
Well, I'm glad you're watching, Heather, because
really good dogs.
I'll be bugging Greg to arrange a new talk with Heather as well. And hey, we're only a month and change away from the celebration of the 60th anniversary of Star Trek all year next year in 26. Yes, please. And I know then on the novel side a lot of shit's going on as well. And sorry kids, there's gonna be a lot more Trek watch talk here on Word Balloon because of all these great people that are very talented and providing great entertainment with the Star Trek franchise. So, boyos, well done. We'll talk in a few weeks, and I'll bug you
again soon, I'm sure.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you, guys. Jackson Lanzing, Colin Kelly, the dynamic duo of Star Trek, and it's always great to catch up and hear about new stuff. I got to scroll down because I dropped my mouse. You might have heard it clank earlier in the conversation. But no, great stuff. And let's see. This weekend on Star, it's going to be interesting on Word Balloon. And you guys will appreciate this, being the futurist that you are. I decided to have an interesting chat with AI and do a back and forth. And I know, and Colin, I appreciate the negative face, but essentially, I am calling it and incels look at AI. And I am not an incel, but I will adopt the lonely guy persona of the supposed incel. And I really want to get inside a robot's head because they're your friend and they can talk about anything you're interested in. So I'm going to do a comic book episode.
Watch out down that rabbit hole, dude.
Yeah.
That is
no, I look.
Holodeck is cool. I don't know. The holodeck is just like a neat thing. We can go play like, I don't know, like a video game or something in it.
Well,
and the entire life.
And the amount of shit that they get wrong is fantastic as well. And as I've been thinking about it and framing this, the future is not now, but we are about 2 weeks away from Skynet taking over the world, metaphorically speaking.
Next time when we don't have to immediately run, bring this back up, and I'll go on a 30-minute rant about why you're right. I'm excited. Let's dig in.
I understand. You guys don't even have to stick around for the post-show chat. Thank you guys for coming on. Thank you, everybody, for watching. It's going to be a fun weekend, and really to close out November. We also have the book club coming up on Sunday. Bendis and I will be talking about Kelly Thompson's excellent Birds of Prey Volume 1. All that on Word Balloon Live this weekend. Join us then. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.